Lawrence DeVol, a name that became synonymous with fear and violence across the Midwest. A stone-cold killer who built his criminal career among America's most notorious outlaws. From humble beginnings to a tragic end, this is 50 States of Mystery, and I'm your host, Nigel Foxworthy. Today, we're uncovering the chilling story of Lawrence DeVol, a man whose life of crime took him from small-town banks to bloody shootouts alongside infamous gangsters like the Barker Gang. DeVol's descent into crime began early. Born in Ohio, his family moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, when he was young. In Oklahoma, he was labeled incorrigible by age 11 and sent to the Oklahoma State Training School for white boys. Yet, rather than being reformed after his release, DeVol found a family of criminals in Tulsa's Central Park gang. Among this gang, the Barker family became his twisted mentors. The Barker home, under the watchful eye of Ma Barker herself, was a hub for criminals fresh out of prison, a place where robberies were planned, and young men like DeVol learned the ropes of a life on the wrong side of the law. DeVol was first arrested for larceny at age 13. He then participated in his first bank robbery on the 19th of August 1927, when he joined Eddie Fitzgerald, Harry Morris, and Harvey Bailey in stealing $70,000 from a bank in Vinton, Iowa. He joined the group in a second robbery, which included Al Johnson, in February 1928, stealing $225,000 from a bank in Washington Courthouse, Ohio. That same year, DeVol was convicted of a bank robbery in Kansas and sent to the state reformatory in Hutchinson. During his incarceration, he was befriended by Alvin Karpis. The pair escaped from the facility on the 9th of March 1929 and reached Pueblo, Colorado, where they stole a car and headed south. They stopped in Woodward, Oklahoma, where they attempted to burglarize a store, but DeVol was caught, arrested, and returned to Hutchinson. In spite of his escape attempt, DeVol was paroled by the end of the year and rejoined his old partner in a string of robberies throughout Kansas and Oklahoma. They were eventually arrested in Kansas City, Kansas, on March 23, 1930, with DeVol posting $1,000 bail on April 1st and abandoning Karpis by leaving town. By April 1930, DeVol's life of crime turned deadly. He and partner Jimmy Creighton were prime suspects in the robbery and murder of two businessmen at Muskoge's Hotel Savers. Just 2 months later, DeVol killed his first lawman, gunning down Sheriff William Sweet and City Marshal Aaron Bailey in Washington, Iowa, who were reporting to a call about a stolen car. Emboldened by these violent encounters, DeVol's criminal career surged forward. By August, he was robbing banks with Harvey Bailey and other criminals from the Barker Karpis gang, pulling in thousands of dollars with each job. But as his take grew, so did his taste for violence. In November 1930, he brazenly robbed the Orpheum Theater in Hannibal, Missouri, and shot 2 police officers in Kirksville the next morning. It was clear DeVol had become a stone-cold killer. By April 1930, DeVol's life of crime turned deadly. He and partner Jimmy Creighton were prime suspects in the robbery and murder of 2 businessmen at Muskoge's Hotel Savers. Then, in December 1932, DeVol joined the Barker Karpis gang in one of their biggest heists yet. On December 16th, they hit the Third Northwestern National Bank in Minneapolis, netting $22,000 in cash and another $92,000 in bonds. But as they fled, DeVol opened fire, killing patrolman Ira Evans and Leo Gorski in cold blood. DeVol's growing notoriety and body count marked him as one of America's most wanted. After the heist, DeVol holed up in a rented St. Paul apartment with another bandit. On December 18th, DeVol ventured out, dressed only in a fur coat over his underwear. Perhaps he was out looking for cigarettes, booze, or drugs. But his confusion led him to the wrong door, where he began banging, demanding entry. The bewildered resident, seeing a man in his underwear with a gun, called the police. Officers George Hammergren and his partner, Officer Cast, were dispatched, thinking they'd deal with nothing more than a drunken nuisance. Instead, they stumbled upon one of America's most dangerous men. Arriving at the open apartment door, they found DeVol's bandit partner, who assured them that the man they were looking for was just a bit boisterous. Hammergren entered the bedroom and was greeted by the sight of DeVol, still in his underwear, pointing a revolver at him. Hammergren lunged at DeVol, grabbing both hands in a struggle to wrest the gun away. He called for Cast, and together they managed to disarm him. Assuming DeVol was simply a crazy drunk, they didn't bother to handcuff him as they led him out to the squad car. But DeVol wasn't finished. Once they reached the car, he attacked Hammergren, sinking his teeth into the officer's left wrist. Hammergren wrestled DeVol out of the car, where they rolled on the pavement. DeVol broke free, only to be chased down and struck over the head with the butt of Hammergren's gun. Cast, hearing the commotion, joined in, and together they subdued DeVol. It wasn't until they searched the apartment and discovered guns, loot, and other evidence that they realized they'd captured Lawrence DeVol, a dangerous and elusive outlaw. Bleary-eyed and disheveled, DeVol's mugshot was taken, showing him in his prized fur coat and looking far from the hardened criminal he truly was. 2 days later, he was cleaned up, dressed in a suit, tie, and hat for another mugshot in Minneapolis. But this time, his scowl betrayed his anger at having been caught. Facing trial, DeVol pleaded guilty to the murders of officers Ira Evans and Leo Gorski. He received a life sentence and was sent to Stillwater Penitentiary. But as fate would have it, his journey didn't end there. In December 1935, he was transferred to St. Peter Hospital for the criminally insane. Diagnosed with what psychiatrists called dementia praecox catatonia, DeVol was described as suffering from unbalanced judgment, delusions, hallucinations, alternating apathy, and violent excitement. Yet his memory remained sharp, and he could still grasp situations quickly. Perhaps these very qualities made him even more dangerous. DeVol understood his condition better than his doctors. Recognizing his chance, he began plotting his escape. On June 6, 1936, he was involved in a mass breakout, freeing himself along with 15 other inmates. But for DeVol, freedom was fleeting. Just a month later, he surfaced in Turon, Kansas, where he and a fellow escapee robbed a bank before fleeing to Enid, Oklahoma. There, in a final act of defiance, DeVol opened fire in a local tavern when officers attempted to question him. Patrolman Cal Palmer was killed, and another officer, Ralph Knar, was seriously wounded. DeVol fled on foot, leaping onto the running board of a passing car, posing as a deputy sheriff. But the real law quickly caught up. In the ensuing gunfight, DeVol was shot 9 times, ending the life of one of America's most ruthless criminals. The tragic DeVol legacy didn't end with Lawrence's death. His brother Albert was later embroiled in scandal when a young woman, reportedly drunk and depressed, leaped from his hotel window after he allegedly taunted her. Albert faced charges in 1957 for drug possession and tragically hanged himself in jail. Meanwhile, Clarence, known as Cotton, was frequently charged with gambling offences, marking a family shadowed by crime. From troubled beginnings to a violent end, the DeVol family's story is one of crime, tragedy, and wasted lives. Lawrence, who first entered a reform school at just 11, learned early how to live on the wrong side of the law, and under the tutelage of the Barker Gang, he cemented his place in America's criminal history. A little note before we go. For those of you who know what Johnny Depp looks like, my first instinct was that Lawrence DeVol bears a striking resemblance to a younger Depp. Here's a side-by-side comparison. Johnny on the right and DeVol on the left. What do you think? Let me know in the comments if you see a similarity. But as much as DeVol's life would make a thrilling gangster movie, let's not forget the tragic legacy he left behind. DeVol wasn't just a character, he was a cold-blooded killer, and the families of the men he murdered carried that pain through generations. DeVol's story is one of violence, loss, and the haunting aftermath for those who survived. Thank you for joining me on this journey into America's dark past. Be sure to like, subscribe, and stay curious as we bring you more true tales from 50 states of mystery. Until next time,